It was obvious that the masked guy was Kang Chael, but there was something about Kang that set him apart from the other bullies Mu had faced years ago. When he was just 15 and starting to excel in boxing, his sister had become a promising rookie ballerina. As her only family, Kang supported her in every way he could, mentally, emotionally, and however else he was able to help. Everything was going well until she caught the attention of a creepy stalker. Soon, the man's obsession grew worse with each passing day until one day he completely lost control and crossed the red line. He secretly followed her, and when she turned into a quiet alley, he decided to make his move to carry out his sick intentions. Luckily, Kang happened to be nearby and saw what was going on. Before the stalker could harm his sister, Kang jumped in and with a surprise attack managed to stop him before any damage was done. The police were called and the stalker was arrested, but because Kang had stepped in before anything illegal actually happened, there wasn't enough evidence to punish him properly. The man was released not long after, but his obsession had now reached a dangerous peak. It had turned into madness mixed with a thirst for revenge. Before long, the creepy man found the girl again, this time in another quiet spot, but now he had brought along a kitchen knife, clearly planning something much more cruel. However, Kang showed up once again, seemingly out of nowhere, and stopped the crime. But this time, he wasn't fast enough. His sister's leg was badly injured, and her future as a ballerina was shattered like a swan with broken wings. Kang blamed the law for failing to protect her, and from that day on, he decided he couldn't trust it anymore. Instead, he vowed to do whatever he thought was right. His first act? Beating that creepy man within an inch of his life. But that was just a beginning. Kang resolved to handle what the law couldn't. Whenever he came across a suspicious gang or someone who looked like they were about to bully or harm others for no reason, Kang would step in. He'd give them a warning, not with words but with a not-so-gentle move, using his new favorite weapon. Fate turned Kang into an anti-bully vigilante, someone who saw fighting not as violence but as judgment. And so the reason he came after Mu wasn't much different. Back to the present, Mu stood there, accepting Kang's preemptive punch without any resistance. Even though he got hit with a surprise attack from behind, something that could have easily knocked him out, Mu quickly realized it was just a light punch, nothing like the heavy blows he was used to as a first strike. He couldn't help but wonder if Kang just wanted to test his reflexes, or if the punch was meant as some kind of warning. Either way, Mu didn't care. All he needed was confirmation to start the fight, and now he had it. As usual, Mu wasn't exactly dissatisfied about being in another fight, completely clueless that this opponent wasn't going to be as easy as the others. Kang, however, didn't rush to begin the fight, officially. He hesitated, surprised by the fact that Mu wasn't running around beating people up for fun like he'd been told. Kang had no idea it was all a lie made up by Hyung to impress him. Mu, on the other hand, had no interest in explaining himself or clearing up the misunderstanding. He casually ignored Kang's questions and told him to stop wasting time with small talk and do something already. That, of course, hit a nerve with Kang and only made him believe Hyung's story even more, further convincing him that Mu really was as crazy as he'd heard. Kang did exactly what Mu asked for. He dashed forward and started trying to beat him up without wasting any time. Mu, however, stayed on guard and prepared to defend himself like he was a pro boxer or something. Kang didn't hold back, throwing punch after punch, but surprisingly, Mu dodged every single one of them. With each dodge, Mu's confidence grew bit by bit. Seeing this, Kang quickly realized that his opponent wasn't just all talk like other bullies. He actually knew a few things about fighting. So Kang decided to step it up a notch. He threw a light right punch to block Mu's vision, planning to catch him off guard and land a heavy strike using the opening. But to Kang's surprise, Mu had already anticipated the move too. For Kang though, this was just a warm-up. It felt like he had found the perfect punching bag to practice on. He started throwing punches again, but this time Mu could clearly feel the difference in power compared to the earlier strikes. As expected from a champion boxer, Kang used his skills and experience to keep the pressure on, refusing to give Mu any moment to catch his breath. Punch after punch came at him, relentless and powerful. On the other hand, Mu was completely cornered and couldn't do much. Kang was relentlessly targeting Mu's weak spots, making it almost impossible for him to focus on the fight. Things got even worse when Kang found an opening and landed a bone-crushing punch to Mu's side. The pain hit him instantly. It was like getting kicked in the balls twice in a row. Kang backed off for a moment, letting Mu deal with the sharp pain in his side, but not without making a point. He coldly mentioned that he was deliberately going after Mu's weak and injured spots because in his judgment, unworthy people didn't deserve any mercy. But instead of being scared, impressed, or even angry, Mu, still struggling with his pain, started laughing. That laugh threw Kang off for a moment, but then it got under his skin. He couldn't believe Mu's reaction and it made him furious, pushing him to become even more ruthless than before. Meanwhile, Mu had already figured out the massive gap between Kang's strength and his. It was painfully clear this guy was on a different level than him. With Lee's body, Mu knew he couldn't beat Kang in raw power, but as someone obsessed with fighting, giving up wasn't an option. Admitting defeat wasn't in his nature. Facing a stronger opponent who didn't fight fair, Mu realized he'd have to play by the same rules. He just needed to focus, stay sharp, and wait for the right opening. As someone with thousands of years of battle experience, he quickly recalled one of his fights that felt eerily similar to his current situation. It was one of those rare 1 in 10,000 battles where Mu was nearly overpowered. Even in those painful moments, he never regretted fighting. He always felt a strange satisfaction from the thrill of it. But back then, it wasn't just about enjoying the fight or even the pain. Mu wanted to win no matter what. So he forced himself to calm down, shutting off all his emotions for a brief moment. The creepy grin disappeared from his bruised, ugly face as he started to carefully analyze his opponent's movements. When another punch was about to come straight for his face, Mu made a move. Using his dirty, torn cloak, he distracted his opponent just enough to create an opening for himself. The more Mu thought and used his tiny bird-sized brain, the smarter and more dangerous he became. Back then, he managed to capitalize on that opening and landed several direct hits on the giant monster he was fighting. But to his disappointment, his attacks didn't seem to have much of an effect. That thing was on a different level than him. Despite knowing he was outmatched, Mu didn't stop. He kept using his small brain to find openings while keeping his emotions in check, refusing to give in or give up. Mu was defeated that day and somehow managed to survive. But even in those agonizing moments, he couldn't help but enjoy the thrill of slipping through. The situation now wasn't much different, so Mu decided to use the same strategy, shutting down his emotions and putting on a sullen expression. But since he had no clue how Lee's face would look after suppressing his feelings, he just forced himself to improvise for the time being. His new expression combined with his already ugly face irritated Kang more than ever. It pushed Kang to the peak of his anger, as he thought Mu was mocking him on purpose. This time, Kang charged at him, determined to finish it once and for all. With his raw power, Mu, however, acted like he was just fooling around, pretending to be completely unaware of what was coming his way as Kang kept moving forward, throwing punches wildly. Mu stepped back, dodging the attacks as best as he could. It didn't take long before his back hit a tree, making him realize he needed to switch tactics. Suddenly, an idea popped into his head. He dug his foot into the ground and with a quick motion, kicked dirt up as fast as he could. Some of it managed to hit Kang's face, but since Kang was wearing protective glasses and quickly shielded his face with his hands, it didn't do much damage. Instead, it only confirmed Kang's suspicion that Mu was a criminal who deserved a beating. All of a sudden, Mu lowered his head, causing Kang to hesitate for a moment, but it was all an act. Mu smirked and taunted him, asking if he'd stop attacking because he was scared. The jab hit its mark, and Kang's temper skyrocketed, giving him all the motivation he needed to keep going. Without hesitation, Kang launched another attack. However, Mu, with his goofy-looking face, was surprisingly ready this time and dodged the punch with ease. But Kang wasn't about to let him off the hook so easily. With a sudden move, Kang appeared behind Mu, trying to attack from his blind spot. But once again, Mu managed to dodge it. This time though, Kang's fist grazed Mu's chin, causing a little damage, but it wasn't something Mu even cared about, because he was convinced his plan was working. Kang couldn't focus like before. It didn't take long for Mu to notice one of the biggest differences between Kang and the other two opponents he had fought earlier. Kang's fighting style was far more aggressive, unlike their defensive approach. In Mu's opinion, except skill and ability, the ground was the key reason for this difference. That also explained the real purpose behind throwing dirt earlier, not to actually hit Kang's protected face, but to scatter dirt and small rocks on the ground, creating countless obstacles that made it harder for Kang to move freely.
Kang's aggressive fighting style, fueled by Mu's mocking behavior, made his moves predictable and easier to block with minimal effort. Everything was falling into place according to Mu's plan. After struggling to keep up and getting beaten earlier, Mu was now managing to dodge Kang's attacks again. But dodging wasn't his ultimate goal. He was trying to force Kang to move around recklessly, increasing the chances of him stepping on the scattered dirt and small rocks, eventually losing his balance. Soon Mu got exactly what he was waiting for. Kang stepped on a small rock, lost his focus, and gave Mu the perfect opening. Wasting no time, Mu jumped into action, knowing he couldn't afford to miss this chance to turn the fight in his favor. He aimed for a vital spot, but mid-air, he realized his arm wasn't responding, probably from all the strikes he had blocked earlier. Still, he didn't let that stop him, and used his elbow instead, landing a heavy blow. For a moment, Mu wondered why his arm had suddenly stopped working and forced him to use his elbow, but it didn't matter much. The elbow strike turned out to be way stronger than any punch he could have thrown. Kang's glasses shattered, and he was left stunned, completely caught off guard. Naturally, Mu couldn't resist using this moment to get under Kang's skin again. He started mocking him, throwing insults, and making fun of how easily he'd been hit. But then something went wrong. Mu was so caught up in planning his next move and taunting Kang that he failed to notice what was happening in the moment. While Mu was busy mocking him, Kang had used his weapon and crushed Mu's leg. It didn't take long for Mu to feel the unbearable pain. He dropped to his knees, stunned, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. Kang, now standing tall, rested his weapon on his shoulder, smirking. It was his turn to mock Mu. "What's the matter? Want to laugh and mess around now? Or is this not so funny anymore?" Kang had had enough of Mu. No one had ever annoyed him this much, so much so that he decided to break Mu's jaw, making sure he would never laugh again. Mu was still on his knees, unable to move even an inch to dodge or defend himself. Just before the blow landed, Mu realized something. He had lost. Mu closed his eyes, bracing himself for the hit, while his thoughts drifted. He wondered if, after nearly 4,000 years, he was finally going to taste failure again. And Kang was ready to remind him what that bitter moment felt like. But just a split second before Kang's strike could crush Mu's head, something, a piece of rock maybe, came flying out of nowhere and hit Kang directly in the face. The impact was so sudden that it made him stumble, and the object disappeared, rolling into the trees in an instant. Whatever it was, it stopped Kang's attack and saved Mu. Now distracted, Kang quickly looked around, trying to figure out who had thrown it. Things got even more complicated when he heard a faint, weak voice calling out to him, "Master," and getting closer, Kang's instincts kicked in. As someone who took pride in hunting bullies from the shadows, he couldn't risk being seen. Without wasting any time, Kang grabbed his sweatshirt, threw it on, pulling the hood over his head, and dashed away before anyone could appear and see his face. As soon as Kang disappeared, a small creature that looked like a monster appeared from behind and with a trembling voice called out, "Master." Mu turned his gaze to see who was calling him, and to his surprise, it was a small lizard-like creature with horns. As someone who had once raised that lizard to a dragon and made it worthy of being his assistant, Mu recognized it immediately. Despite how different it looked now from a dragon with no one else around to cause trouble, Mu and the Dragonling headed back to Lee's house. Once they were settled, the Dragonling began explaining everything that happened to Mu in the Gods realm and his own story that how ended up on Earth with this body. According to him, after his defeat against Lucifer, Lucifer found Mu's godly body and trapped it in an unbreakable, unpenetrable barrier that separated time and space. This made it impossible for Mu's soul to return to his body. To ensure no one interfered with his plans, Lucifer took Mu's body to his own domain, where he kept a close watch on it. A satisfied smile was always on Lucifer's face, knowing that without his body, Mu couldn't do much against him. However, there was one small problem. Lucifer couldn't enter Earth to finish him off so easily. There was only one way for him to do so. He had to convince the Dragonling to reveal how he could access or enter Mu's planet. Lucifer also brought the defeated dragon to his domain, promising him that if he cooperated and helped them get to Earth to get rid of Mu, he would make the dragon the new god of Earth in Mu's place. Lucifer was confident that this offer might tempt Mu's assistant into betraying him for the chance to gain power. The dragonling, however, didn't give a clear response. Instead, he whispered something so quietly that Lucifer couldn't make out what he was saying. Annoyed, Lucifer demanded that he speak louder, at least enough for him to hear his answer. Finally, the dragonling spoke up, but instead of answering directly, he pointed at the barrier around Mu. He asked Lucifer if the barrier, which could block time and space, could also stop attacks from passing through it. Lucifer assumed that the dragonling was asking because he wanted to rescue Mu, so he confidently assured him that no attack could harm or penetrate the barrier. He even emphasized how invincible it was and told the dragonling to just give up and consider joining his side. But then something strange happened. Lucifer noticed the surroundings were starting to get brighter. Suspicious, he turned to see what was going on, and what he saw made him freeze. The dragonling's injured body was glowing with the golden light, crackling with energy. At first, Lucifer was shocked, trying to figure out what the dragonling was planning, but his shock quickly turned to fear when the dragonling suddenly shouted, "Massive self-explosion." And that moment, before Lucifer could react, the roof of his castle, the very place he used as the base to control his domain, was completely shattered. But in the next second, his entire castle was obliterated, disappearing like it had been hit by a nuclear bomb. And yet, that wasn't even the craziest part. The explosion was so massive that it burnt an entire side of the god's realm to ashes. The dragonling had used 99% of his strength for that explosion, and as a result, he reverted to his smallest, weakest form, a tiny lizard-like creature covered in smoke and dust. He did his best to make a run for it before Lucifer realized what had happened, knowing there was nowhere safe for him anymore. The poor lizard had only one place to go, back to his master on Earth. But Lucifer wasn't about to let him escape that easily. Emerging from the dust, furious and betrayed, Lucifer stormed after him, clearly enough to lacer his turned neck into a stew. The lizard printed as fast as he could, desperate to stay out of Lucifer's reach. But before he could make it, Lucifer summoned a magical spear and hurled it at him with all his might. The little dragonling, now missing part of his tail, was only a few meters away from Mu's throne and the gateway to Earth. Despite everything, the magical spear missed him and he managed to leap onto Mu's throne, then onto the miniature Earth's surface, vanishing from the godly domain and reappearing in Earth's sky completely drained of energy. Mu's poor assistant didn't even care where or how he was going to land. He simply closed his eyes and let fate decide, and as it turned out, fate had chosen him to be his master savior. The object that had hit Kang's face earlier, stopping him from landing the final blow, was none other than this tiny, exhausted lizard that was everything he could remember. And Mu, after hearing the dragonling's explanation about everything that had happened, fell deep into thought. His now small assistant couldn't help but wonder if something was wrong. But as expected, Mu wasn't sad. He was furious. Furious enough at Lucifer that if he ever got the chance to return to his original body, he wouldn't let Lucifer live another second. All of a sudden, Mu's expression shifted from anger to excitement as he realized he finally had a chance to fight Lucifer again, a proper all-out battle. Even the little one, his assistant, after all these years, wasn't used to how quickly Mu's attitude and emotions could change,
so he was a bit startled by it. Mu sprang out of Lee's bed, buzzing with excitement, finding yet another purpose to keep going. But deep down, he knew he stood no chance against Lucifer in this body. The only option was to work harder and make Lee's body stronger. However, Lee's weak, battered body was in such bad shape that even throwing a light punch at the air made him feel like everything was breaking. Mu couldn't help but wish this new body could heal faster. Then it hit him. He had told Dragonling to find a magical orb for him the last time they met. Turning to the small lizard, he asked almost hopelessly if there was any chance he got that and had brought it back to Earth. To his surprise, Dragonling had actually brought the magic orb. Or at least that's what he claimed. Since he didn't have anything like a pocket or bag to carry it, the little lizard had been hiding the orb deep in his stomach. Now, at Mu's request, he slowly began to cough it up. But because the orb was bigger than the lizard itself, Mu's assistant struggled a bit to deliver it to his god.
Once he finally finished, Dragonling explained that it was a dragon bloodstone infused with one-time healing spell. The little lizard apologized for only bringing one, saying he was in a hurry, and of course he couldn't carry more. Mu didn't wait for his assistant's saliva to dry and immediately picked it up to take a closer look. As soon as he held it in his hand, he thanked Dragonling and told him this orb would be more than enough for now. Without hesitation, Mu activated the orb, releasing its healing effect immediately, making it to shrink in size simultaneously. Only a few moments later, Mu's body was surrounded by a green aura radiating from the orb, and his wounds started healing instantly. But that wasn't even the best part. Mu suddenly noticed something surprising. The orb's effect wasn't just limited to healing. He could feel his muscles becoming more responsive, almost sensitive, in a way they weren't before. There was only one explanation. The orb must have also been infused with a body enhancement spell, which was visibly improving Lee's weak body. Noticing Mu's impressed reaction, Dragonling proudly admitted that he'd personally put effort into it and infused his own magic into the dragon bloodstone. Mu appreciated it as he stared at the leftover remains of the orb, thinking that it must be because it was used on a weak human body. Not all of its power had been consumed, which explained the leftover fragment. He handed it to the little lizard, giving him permission to use it for himself. However, Dragonling didn't want to waste it on himself. Instead, he decided to store it for Mu to use later in case of an emergency. Just like before, he carefully pushed it back to its resting place, deep inside his stomach. The scene suddenly shifted to a rare yellow lizard on the other side of the city. Surprisingly, it was a favorite pet of the girl from earlier. She didn't see it as just an animal, it was one of her closest friends. She even wished it could talk so that neither of them would ever get bored. Not long after, she stopped playfully annoying her pet and returned it to its cozy home. She needed to head out, likely to school since pets weren't allowed there. She needed to leave it behind to live its own life for a while. Peace returned to her home as she attempted to leave, but that day life at school was no different. Everything seemed calm and peaceful. No one was bossing others around or causing any trouble. Even the beaten-up bully from before was quietly sitting at his desk now, wearing glasses. He was fully focused on his studies. The pain he had endured after facing Moon had knocked some sense into him. Instead of wasting his time, he was now preparing for exams, determined to turn things around. Everything was fine until Mu decided to make one of his usual over-the-top dramatic entrances into the classroom. The moment he walked in, he noticed the beaten-up guy, and without hesitation, asked if he wanted to go for another round of fighting. It wasn't clear if Mu was just messing with him or being completely serious. But before he could get an answer, the president girl appeared behind them, acting all surprised to see that Lee had actually decided to show up to school after being absent for so long. Mu, with the little lizard crawling under his shirt and causing a slight commotion, casually replied that he was only here because she had convinced him earlier. Of course, he added that the only reason he came was to look for someone to fight and beat to death. His intimidating expression and choice of words made the girl wonder what kind of chaos he was planning to stir up this time. But since there didn't seem to be any immediate signs of trouble, she just wished him good luck. Half of the day passed and nothing exciting happened to make Mu's day interesting. On the floor below his class, two students were chatting about the recent events at school. Those two happened to be Kang and the girl from his class. Since he always seemed so clueless about anything going on at school, the girl was filling Kang in about the second-year student who had recently been humiliated. She explained the details with a bit of gossiping flair, while Kang was listening with mild curiosity, still trying to piece together what had been happening around him. As the school day ended, Kang and the girl began walking toward the exit, with her eagerly explaining everything she heard in detail. According to the rumors and what she knew, the nerdy guy who used to get bullied all the time had one day turned the tables on his tormentor. He beat the bully so badly that the guy lost consciousness and had to be rushed to the hospital. If that wasn't shocking enough, the nerd had supposedly ripped off the bully's ear in a wild move, earning him the nickname Neutered from then on. Kang had no idea at first that she was talking about Lee, as she described the incident along with Hyung's appearance. Especially his ripped off ear and Mu's suspicious behavior, Kang quickly pieced it all together. There was a high chance that the nerdy guy she was talking about and Lee were the same person. It suddenly hit Kang. Hyun's crocodile tears and his whole act of pretending to be a victim had been a ploy to manipulate him. But since it was all in the past and there was nothing he could do about it now, Kang decided to let it go, at least for the time being. On his way back home, Kang didn't realize he was taking the same path as Mu. Mu, on the other hand, was feeling disappointed and frustrated that his day had turned out to be so dull. Everyone at school had been too busy scribbling away on their notebooks or phones, and there hadn't been a single invitation to fight or even the confirmation of one. Just as Mu was about to sink further into hopelessness, something caught his eye. It was Kang, of course, awkwardly walking and looking visibly embarrassed as he chatted with his female friend. Since Kang was wearing glasses and a mask to hide his identity, yesterday Mu didn't recognize him right away, but something about him felt oddly familiar. His hair color, height, and build seemed similar, but his muscle size and its form was the one that sparked Mu's suspicion. In just a second, that suspicion turned into certainty. He completely lost control and yelled, "It's that guy from yesterday!" His loud voice and sudden outburst, of course, caught Kang's attention. Kang turned his head, and the moment he did, he saw Mu charging toward him with a crazed look on him. Without thinking twice, Kang bolted, running as fast as he could, leaving his shocked friend behind. As Kang sprinted away, he couldn't stop wondering how Mu had recognized him. He was sure the expensive mask and glasses he bought were enough to hide his identity. So why was this lunatic chasing after him? Kang couldn't have an answer, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let himself get caught. The last thing he wanted was for this crazy guy to report him to the police or something equally disastrous. Desperate to escape, Kang decided to make an unpredictable move. He spotted an alley up ahead and without hesitation veered off his path, jumping straight into it in hopes of losing Mu. Mu kept chasing after him, determined not to let Kang get away so easily. But as he turned into the alley, Kang was nowhere to be found. It was like he had vanished into thin air. Mu had been looking forward to using this perfect chance to fight Kang, but his hopes were crushed when he realized he was gone. Dragonling popped out of Mu's shirt, asking if that was the same guy who had dared to challenge his lord yesterday. Wanting to help his god track him down, the rude human, he requested permission to sniff him out using the strong male scent he had picked up when Kang hit him the day before. Mu gave him the green light, and Dragonling immediately sprang into action, sniffing around like a well-trained puppy. Just as Mu's assistant was fully committed to his new role, someone suddenly appeared right in front of him, stopping him in his tracks. Lucky enough not to get stomped on, the little lizard tilted his head up to see who it was. To his surprise, it wasn't Kang at all, but the president girl from Lee's class. She stood there stunned, staring at him with wide eyes. Her shock didn't last long. It quickly shifted to a delighted blush as she looked at the adorable little lizard. Clearly, it was her first time seeing something so cute, and she couldn't help but be intrigued. The Dragonling had no idea who this girl even was, unaware of the fact that unlike other humans, she actually loved lizards more than anything. Without thinking of himself that he was a demigod and wasn't supposed to be seen by humans, he casually told the girl to step aside so he could finish his task,